Human duality is one of the most complex and fascinating aspects of our nature. Within each person lies the potential for both good and evil, creating a delicate balance between light and shadow. At our core, we are a blend of virtues and flaws, shaped by our life experiences, the values we absorb, and the situations we face. While many of us strive to live according to our principles and do what is right, the reality is that in moments of crisis, frustration, fear, or pain, the shadows we carry can grow stronger. Imagine a person who has always dedicated themselves to helping others, but after a series of disappointments and losses, begins to feel the weight of resentment and injustice. Gradually, what was once a gentle personality can transform into more rigid, distant, and eventually even destructive behaviors. This transformation, however, is not instantaneous. It occurs through a gradual process where choices and sacrifices shape a new path. It's important to remember that this duality does not make someone intrinsically good or bad. Rather, it reflects a constant struggle between different aspects of their personality. The capacity for one side to overcome the other depends on various factors, such as the emotional support received, resilience in the face of adversity, and the willingness to maintain empathy and compassion. Understanding this duality is essential to comprehend why individuals who once seemed so kind can lose themselves in their shadows and adopt behaviors that would have once been unthinkable. It reminds us that we all carry this potential within us, and that at the core, the line between good and evil is much thinner than we imagine. The role of the environment in transforming a person cannot be underestimated, as the environment we live in has a direct influence on our behaviors, thoughts, and feelings. From childhood, we are shaped by the people around us, the values conveyed by our families, the communities in which we grow up, and the experiences we undergo. When someone is in a healthy environment, surrounded by supportive relationships and positive stimuli, they are more likely to develop characteristics such as empathy, generosity, and resilience. However, environments marked by violence, manipulation, emotional isolation, or lack of support can generate feelings of distrust and frustration that, over time, can corrupt even the gentlest hearts. Continuous interaction with toxic individuals or in a competitive and ruthless environment can cause someone to become hardened, more selfish, and even hostile. This happens because emotional survival in adverse environments often requires a hardening of the heart, a form of defense that can negatively shape one's personality. Moreover, the feeling of helplessness and the lack of opportunities to escape such an environment create a more cynical worldview, where previously unthinkable actions become justifiable. Thus, the environment acts as a distorted mirror that reflects and amplifies human vulnerabilities, potentially transforming a good person, surrounded by positivity, into someone who adopts harmful attitudes and behaviors to cope with external pressures. Personal traumas and wounds are powerful forces that can profoundly transform a person's character. Painful events such as losses, rejections, abuses, and disappointments can leave emotional scars that are difficult to overcome. When these traumas are not adequately processed, they can turn into resentment, creating a distorted and bitter view of life and others. A person who was once kind and optimistic may, as they accumulate unresolved pain, begin to see the world as an unjust and hostile place. Hurt, like a shadow, corrodes trust and causes the individual to retreat into a cocoon of self-protection, developing a defensive posture and, in many cases, inflicting the pain they feel back onto the world. Over time, this transformation can intensify, leading to an emotional coldness that did not previously exist. The desire to avoid further suffering can drive someone to behaviors that harm others, as a way to protect themselves or to avoid new wounds. In some cases, these traumas can create a need for control and power as a means to compensate for past vulnerabilities. Thus, what began as a quest for self-preservation can transform into a cycle of behaviors that inflict pain on others. marking the transition from a once good personality to one that is more hardened and bitter. These processes are complex and often unconscious, but they illustrate how accumulated hurt can be a primary driver behind changes in human behavior. The loss of principles is a process that can be subtle yet profound, leading to a gradual transformation in how a person perceives the world and justifies their actions. In many cases, this change begins with small concessions that, at first glance, seem harmless. A lie told to avoid a problem, a selfish act to protect oneself, or a decision that contradicts values once considered fundamental. These actions, repeated and justified through the lens of necessity or self-preservation, wear down the conscience until what was once unacceptable begins to be viewed as a valid survival strategy. The rationalization of these behaviors becomes a frequent mechanism, where the individual finds justifications for actions that go against their former principles. As the clear line between right and wrong blurs, a person may distance themselves from values like empathy, honesty, and respect, adopting an increasingly pragmatic and often insensitive stance. Furthermore, the pursuit of personal goals, such as success or security, can become so intense that it overshadows any ethical value that once was fundamental. The person begins to believe that the end justifies the means, allowing behaviors that would have previously been unthinkable to become part of their daily routine. This process of moral erosion does not happen overnight, but results from an accumulation of decisions that, over time, transform how an individual relates to themselves and others. In losing their principles, they may become a version of themselves that they would not have recognized years before. The pursuit of power or control is one of the reasons that often corrupts a person's character, transforming their attitudes and distorting their intentions. The desire to exert control over others or the circumstances around them can be fueled by various factors, such as insecurities, past traumas, or a need to feel relevant and respected. In many cases, this impulse arises from experiences where the individual felt powerless, at the mercy of events, and now seeks to regain a sense of dominance. Initially, power may be seen as a tool for protection and stability, but over time, it can morph into an obsession with maintaining superiority and influence over others. As the person accumulates more power, they often begin to see themselves as invincible, above the rules they once followed. This feeling of invulnerability leads them to regard actions that were previously seen as wrong or unjust as necessary or deserved. Thus, the individual starts to justify dishonest actions, manipulations, and authoritarian behaviors in the name of maintaining their position. The quest for control can suppress empathy and compassion, replaced by a cold, calculating demeanor. This process ultimately transforms the person, distancing them further from the values that once made them good and bringing them closer to behavior dominated by ambition and the desire to keep everything under their command. Power, when not balanced by principles and self-awareness, becomes a dangerous path that can lead someone to lose sight of themselves. The final reflection on the transformation of a good person into a bad one reminds us that, even when circumstances seem to have shaped someone for the worse, the choice of who we want to be is always within our reach. Traumas, negative influences, hostile environments, and the loss of principles can create layers of pain and bitterness, but human nature is, at its core, marked by the capacity for transformation and renewal. Even when someone feels lost amid their own shadows, there is always the possibility to pause, reflect, and seek a different path. Choosing to change can be a painful process, as it involves confronting the darkest parts of oneself, acknowledging past mistakes, and often dealing with the consequences of actions that have hurt oneself and others. However, this effort also brings the opportunity to reclaim one's values and reconnect with the compassion and empathy that once guided their actions. The decision to become a better person does not erase the wounds of the past, but it is a crucial step toward building a more balanced future and finding peace within oneself. This transformation, although slow, proves that we are not eternal prisoners of our circumstances. Change is a continuous process of choice and courage to face our vulnerabilities. Thus, the story of someone who lost themselves in the shadows can also become the narrative of a journey of redemption and reconnection with their essence. The choice to be better, to rise from the ashes of one's own mistakes, is always a possibility that opens up, regardless of how difficult the path back may be. Each new day presents the choice, and it is up to each individual to decide which path to take, demonstrating that, at heart, it is never too late to rewrite one's story.